Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Of Podup with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Thursday. It means we got a college football analyst, Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird on board. Some news and notes before we jump into that. Obviously, the Gator spring game is tonight. Also, Gator gymnastics competes in the semifinals for the national championship today in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm actually going to attend that. So I'm looking forward to that. Never been to a national championship meet in gymnastics, so should be a lot of fun. Basketball last night, Billy Donovan's crew survives in the play-in games. I do not understand how any of that works, but they play the Heat, I guess, on Friday. And the Tampa Bay Rays continue to dominate. They sit at 12-0 on the season. Let's go to the Titan Number hotline, and we're joined by Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Doing well. Good to be with you, Shane. I'm hoping to be in attendance tonight in the press box for the Gator spring game. Hopefully the storms that are going through will be done by game time. But, boy, Florida's not the only school that has spring games coming up over the next few days. Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Tennessee and A&M all play on Saturday. And by the way, the Miami Hurricanes have their spring game tomorrow night on Friday. So we've got some games, particularly in the state of Florida, spread out over the next few days.
Yeah, and as you said, I wasn't aware of the weather. Hopefully that holds off. I saw pictures on Twitter, I guess, last week of Auburn's game. There wasn't 20 people in the stands because it was pouring down rain. Why didn't they just cancel that?
They really should have done that. I think if it would have been lightning, they obviously would have. But sometimes they look. They knew the previous day what was going on. So you're right. I'm a little bit surprised that they did not. And as you can imagine, Auburn did not get much done during the spring game.
Well, what they should have done is they should have had some guys fake like they saw lightning. That's what we used to do when we were in college. Because Coach Spurrier, of course, everybody's scared of lightning, but it would just be a thunderstorm coming through or what have you. Right. And players used to like, whoa, did you see that lightning? And Coach goes, you saw lightning? He's like, yeah. All right, y'all take it in. So that's just how he was. So guys were always faking the seeing the lightning. The Big Ten commissioner has a new commissioner, or the Big Ten has a new commissioner. Tell us a little bit about him, Brent.
Yeah, this is a guy who has been heavily involved with the television end of things. Tony Petitti, I believe is his name, or at least how to pronounce it. He replaces Kevin Warren, who was the commissioner of the Big Ten, and frankly, one of the worst ones that they've ever had. So that's good that he has moved on, and Petitti is now in that role. He was with CBS in the television end of it as far as executive vice president, NFL coverage. He was in Major League Baseball Network before coming over. Obviously, Jim Delaney is the most well-known of the Big Ten commissioners from 1989 to 2019. So he was in the job quite a long time, made a real impact. So that has just now come out. The thing that is in Petitti's favor is that the Big Ten, and I will give Kevin Warren credit for this, were able to go ahead and get a media rights deal $7 billion media rights deal, by the way, with Fox, CBS, and NBC. The deal begins on July the 1st, so he won't have to be able to deal with that. But they were glad to have a commissioner on board. I'm sure the other commissioners around the nation are too.
Yes, indeed. The transfer portal, there is a few dates that fans need to pay attention to.
Yeah, this has changed, if folks haven't heard this. The portal, believe it or not, opens on the 15th. So do the math on that. It's not May 1st. They've actually moved it up. So it's April 15th through 30th. Now, the good and the bad of that is, the good is it's a little earlier and they can be done with it by the end of the month. But the bad of it is you've got players who aren't going to have a lot of time to make up their mind on what they're going to do. And Shane, what makes this even more difficult, there are 21 Power 5 teams that don't have spring games until next weekend. And there are another 7, including Oregon, Maryland, and Rutgers, that don't have a spring game until April the 29th. So if you're a player and you're trying to figure out what to do, you've got one day, if you're depending on the spring game, to help you make up your mind. This is a head shaker for me. Why in the world you would want to move this date in the middle of spring? It's an advantage for coaches because they keep the players together longer and the guys have a shorter decision time. But our listeners need to be aware that is what's new. And beginning on the 15th, which is right around the corner, we're going to have a lot of interesting decisions being made in I think probably fairly quickly too.
Yeah, for sure. There's some conference realignment that people may not, I mean, I'm sure they're aware of it, but does that go into effect this fall or the following fall?
Well, some of them go into effect this fall, as a matter of fact. Now, obviously, Texas, Oklahoma is not until next fall, but for what's going on this fall, the Big 12 adds BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston from the American. The American then adds UAB, Charlotte, Florida Atlantic, North Texas, Rice, and Texas, San Antonio. And Conference USA will add Liberty, New Mexico State, Jacksonville State, and Sam Houston. Now, obviously, Jacksonville State and Sam Houston on the football championship subdivision level. They're also going to add Kennesaw State in 2024. So, Shane, we're going to have a roster this coming season just to keep up with the conferences, aren't we?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Brent, in your notes here, you have some SEC droughts, which I'll look through them briefly. It's kind of catches your eye a little bit.
Some of these droughts are frankly amazing. And what we mean by this is, and I give Saturday Down South credit for this, Georgia has not had a 1,000-yard receiver since 2002. Yes, 2002. Now, they've got some guys in who I think could make a difference with that this year. So we will keep that in mind. Auburn, now this to me may have been the most stunning one of all. Auburn hasn't had a top 40, I don't mean top 10, I mean top 40 passing offense since 1997 with Damian Craig.
That's a long time ago.
It really is, isn't it, Shane? South Carolina hasn't had a quarterback drafted since the NFL draft went to 7 rounds. That's what you see. Lane Kiffin hasn't defeated a Power 5 team that won 9 regular season games since 2011. is another one. So that's some of the droughts going on, which are really amazing. Arkansas has had a player that's had 10 sacks in a season since 2011. Drew Sanders would have done that if he'd probably played in the bowl game, but he didn't. So, Shane, those are rather surprising, are they not?
Yeah, and as you said, the one about Lane Kiffin, he is 1-in-19 lifetime against Power 5 teams that had a 9-win season. So, yeah, it's some staggering stuff there. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titan Memorial Hotline. All right, Brent, let's go around the league. What's going on up in Tuscaloosa?
They've had an interesting spring. They're trying to get their offensive line to improve. They have given up 63 sacks and 167 tackles for loss over the past 2 years. That's way too many, and that's something they've got to improve on, and I think they are. I think the offensive line will be better than they were. Walford, the Kentucky coach that came over, I think will do a better job in his second year. They've got their second scrimmage coming on Saturday. And they've got, obviously, the quarterback battle between Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson. Eli Holstein from Louisiana is also involved with that, too. They've had some guys who have come on and really had good springs, too. But now Bama doesn't play Saturday. They play Saturday week on the 22nd, so they're a little bit delayed. All eyes on the quarterbacks, but got 2 new coordinators, and Tommy Reese for the offensive coordinator, Kevin Steele for the defensive coordinator. So I think the Alabama spring game will be fairly interesting too.
It should. Arkansas, I don't think people realize how many, what kind of turnover they had on their roster this year, but what's going on up in Fayetteville?
Yeah, this is worth repeating. They lost 25 scholarship players at the transfer portal. They brought in 11 scholarship transfers, 9 that's been there this spring. They've also added 20 scholarship freshmen, 12 of who've been there this spring. They do bring in a new offense coordinator, Dan Enos, of note. So they have also got a new transfer in Anthony Booker from Maryland. This just happened a few days ago. That should help their defensive line too. So going to be interesting to see what this Arkansas team is able to do. They've also got KJ Jefferson, who is back. Now, he has done some really good things, and he's going to break a lot of school records. But just in case people were interested, Jefferson is 16-9 as a starter, 5 career losses of 3 points or less. So they have been on the precipice of winning several games. So, Shane, that they're hoping he'll have a better year this year and can turn some of those losses into wins.
Yes, indeed. Auburn, as we mentioned earlier, played their spring game in some serious rain. You got some stats listed here that weren't very impressive, but I don't know why they played the game. What can you tell us about the Tigers?
Yeah, they had 0 passes completed in the first quarter, 1 for positive yards in the first half, dropped a bunch of them. That's no surprise. Still don't know about the quarterbacks. Robbie Ashford made a little bit of noise this week that if they bring someone else in, that he's probably leaving. TJ Finley, Holden Grinner, or the 3 quarterbacks. There's been a lot of talk from Auburn beat writers and even Hugh Freeze himself that they might bring in someone from the transfer portal at quarterback. So keep your eye on that. Another interesting thing, Freeze mentioned during the game, and he was mic'd up because this game was on the SEC Network Plus, that Philip Montgomery, the offensive coordinator, may be calling the plays. Now, look, you and I both know that coaches who have a reputation for calling plays are reluctant to give that up. So that's easy to say. Just to say in spring at Shane, we'll see if it actually happens.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze will be calling their plays. I'm pretty sure of that. The Gators tonight, orange and blue game. The teams are set. I'm sure people saw that all over Twitter. There's 1,000 administrators on the orange team and 1,000 on the blue team as well. What can you tell us? What you know about the Gators, Brent?
Well, if folks have not heard over the last few days, just to catch up, in the 2024 class, they've added 4-star running back Kaheem Daniels, which is good. Chauncey Bowen's a running back, so they've got a couple of them he announced several months ago. So I think that is helpful. David Connor, redshirt freshman offensive tackle, is no longer with the team, so he is transferring out too. But again, hopefully there'll be a dry track by tonight. Will be interesting to see, obviously, what Graham Mertz is going to be doing. Jack Miller, Max Brown, also. And again, it's hard to tell what the defense is going to do. But the defense allowed basically 5 yards a carry last year. That was number 100 in Division I. So that is something that will be an improvement much needed during that time. So also interested to see, Shane, without Keon Zipper, what the tight end room is going to be looking like too. So, and I'll be frank with you, I've heard more optimism toward this Gator season, and a lot of that is because of Billy Napier and his tour, and just kind of basically explaining what happened last year and what's going on in the future. And I think, fortunately, and you and I've talked about this now for quite a while, that, again, if people are patient with this football staff and this team, that they're going to start showing some steady improvement.
Yes, for sure. And if people aren't aware, there no longer is a Gator Collective. It's been sold to they rebranded it. It's now called Florida Victorious. It sounds like it's going to be a really good thing for the NIL. Brent, I want you to do this for me. The next time Austin Armstrong, the new defense coordinator for the Gators, does a press conference sitting at the podium, I want you to listen to it and tell me he doesn't sound exactly same. He just sounds just like Kirby Smart to me. If you close your eyes, you would think you listen to Kirby Smart. They have the same accent and everything.
Well, and again, Armstrong was also with Nick Saban, and Kirby Smart was with Nick Saban. So you're right. And a lot of these guys, they sound like they're mentors after a while, don't they, Shane?
Yeah, and they always say the same thing as you said with their mentor, but his accent and just the tone of his voice is exactly like Kirby Smart. Speaking of Kirby Smart, what can you tell us about the Dogs?
Georgia's spring game is coming up on Saturday. Don't expect anyone to be named as a starting quarterback. Carson Beck, Brock Vandergriff, and Gunnar Stockton are still going at it, and Kirby Smart saying what all coaches say, well, they're all three doing good things. So that's where we are with that. Branson Robinson and running backs getting more time because Kendall Milton's out for the spring, and Dejon Edwards is limited with hamstring, both of those guys with hamstrings. So Robinson would get a little bit more time. Be interesting to see who replaces Jalen Carter, Christian Miller, Tyrone Dawkins, Bear Alexander are some of the names. Now, remember, Georgia's game is actually on ESPN2. Everybody else in the league is on ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus. And that same thing tonight with the Gators. it may take a while to find it. So people just need to be aware of that, not thinking you're going to sit down tonight and turn on ESPN and there it is, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Brent, we're running out of time as we usually do with Brent Beaird. Give us some nuggets before we get you out of here.
Yeah, well, with some of these, we don't have time to go into all these spring games, but Ole Miss has their spring game, and as Shane and I have talked for a while, there's going to be a lot of eyes on the quarterbacks, and I think also the wide receivers. They've lost some wide receivers. Dayton Wade, a former Western Kentucky player, has played a lot. Too, Jalen Knox, another guy at wide receiver. He caught 77 passes in 3 years at Missouri before he transferred to Ole Miss. So keep your eye on them. South Carolina has their spring game. Joshua Simon, a Western Kentucky transfer at tight end, has had a good spring. Pup Howard, a freshman linebacker, has had a good spring. 6'4", 242, has great size. Tennessee, by the way, I won't go into detail with this, but they've got an infractions hearing April 19th through 21st in Cincinnati. Jeremy Pruitt, the former head coach there at Ansley, who is also the defense coordinator, will be at that hearing. But Tennessee also plays their spring game that's coming up. Cooper Mays has had a good spring at center. Also, Jabari Small, Jalen Wright, hoping to get well. Got some young running backs like Dylan Sampson. Brew McCoy is out for the spring, the wide receiver from Southern Cal that's playing at Tennessee. So that will be one to watch too, but especially with Joe Milton. Texas A&M has their spring game. Matthew Wyckoff, who is a starter on the offensive line, entered the transfer portal this week. They thought that was kind of unusual, but that's what's going on. And I won't go into detail here, but Florida State has their spring game Saturday at 4, and Miami has their spring game, as we mentioned earlier, Friday night, tomorrow night. So keep your eye on both of those. So Shane, just a run through, but going to be a big week of spring games. So that's coming up.
No doubt about it. Well, Brent, enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully the weather holds off. Sorry, I'm going to miss it, but I'm going to tune in to Sean Kelly on the Gator Radio Network, because there's no way in hell I can find the app on my phone or figure that out. So
yeah.
So I'm going to listen to the boys on the radio broadcast. So have a safe trip over there, my man.
Thanks, Shane. Always enjoy it. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. Before we get out of here, I'm going to give you my Peachland Dental picks for Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte surrounding areas. JC and I couldn't get our picks in yesterday for the RBC Heritage on the PGA Tour. I'm going to go with Shane Lowry, Colin Morikawa, and Sungjae M. At Chris Doring, I've already read that one. Celebration Points, where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Nike, International Diamond Center, Dave & Buster's, Bass Pro Shop, Regal Cinemas, Prime and Pearl, and the HBC's Restaurant Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We'll see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. We'll be live tomorrow. We'll be right back after these important messages. You've been watching Podup with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Hey dads and kids, join head coach Billy Napier at the Gainesville All-Pro Dad Experience, Saturday, April 22nd at 9 a.m. at the University of Florida Sanders Practice Facility and Fields. Learn fatherhood tips and participate in activities with your kids while rotating through stations on the field. It's only $25 per family, so register today at allprodad.com/events. The Gainesville All-Pro Dad Experience is brought to you by the Florida Department of Education, Dairy Council of Florida, and Tyson.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
HarpOnSports with you, Seth Harp, filling in a second half here. Podup with Matthews in the morning. It's, well, I don't want to say the annual rite of passage because that's a little cliche and a little lame, but of course tonight the Florida spring game at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Will it be played? Won't it be played? You know, Mother Nature will make that decision sometime in the afternoon. I can tell you that they were testing the graphics operation up on the scoreboard yesterday, and one of the big graphics that they were testing is play has been suspended due to weather. We will have information for you shortly. So it could be one of those nights in Gainesville as the Florida Gator annual orange and blue game gets ready to kick off. Again, coverage will begin at 7:30 on ESPN 98.1 FM, 850 AM, WRUF. So there you go. You know, these things, they used to hold more weight. They don't anymore. You know, Kyle Crooks and I talked a little bit about this on Wednesday, that you used to not have access to athletes, not like you do today. Now every athlete has Instagram, every athlete has Twitter, every athlete has TikTok, or at least has access to those things. So, you know, you get an abundance of information. And even, you know, the Florida Gators is a football program, as an athletic program, are constantly tweeting out information, constantly sharing highlights from practice, videos from practice. I mean, we have students that go out and cover practice for different entities, and you know, you can see every single drill, not every single drill, but most of them, and those things are publicized right away on Twitter and on other social media platforms. So access to athletes has never been greater. Athletes giving you a peek inside the curtain has never been greater. So I was sitting here thinking about like spring games and what they really mean. And spring games aren't exactly where the Pro Bowl is, but a lot of the luster is lost on a lot of these things. And, you know, we talk about all-star games in baseball. I just mentioned the Pro Bowl, all-star games in other sports. There was a time in the 70s and the 80s, you know as well as I do, a lot of major sporting events were still on tape delay. And then in the 90s, everything became live. And access, at least being able to watch different players from different pockets of the country, you never, ever, ever really saw anybody the exception of maybe the Dodgers, in the NBA, with the exception of maybe the Lakers, you never got to see anybody. You never got to see Portland. You never got to see any Seattle. You never got to see any action from the West Coast. And now, every single night, every single game's on. So, I was sitting here thinking, not just the Gator spring game, but all spring games. There was a time 10, 15 years ago, remember Alabama would draw 90,000, Nebraska drew 80,000 for a spring game, and everybody said, oh my gosh. And what did it lead to? It led to massive building up of stadiums. It became an arms race. How big can we make these suckers? That's why you have 3 in the Big Ten that are over 105,000. Michigan seems to always have been about that big, but Ohio State, everybody, massive expansion. Let's go as quick as possible. And now you have a situation where everybody's trying to scale back a little bit because your interest in things like this just isn't what it used to be. It's not. Your consumption, it's not. So when you want to know, athletic directors and coaches start to think to themselves, okay, what's in the best interest of the program? And I know a lot of people are upset that the game is tonight, that the game is Thursday night. I'm not one of them. I understand what Billy Napier and I understand what Scott Strickland are trying to do. You play this game on a Saturday afternoon, and look, I don't know if it gets delayed. I don't know if they make it up. I don't know exactly how this shakes itself out. My feeling is they're going to try tonight, but the last thing you want on a roster that's not that strong and not that deep is to go out and burn somebody and have somebody bust up a knee and somebody get hurt in a situation like this. Now, at least the field looks good. I mean, it's painted nice. I don't know what type of shape it's in. Everybody says it's in good shape, but when you see games like this and how rainy and how nasty it's going to be, you start to say to yourself, boy, risk, reward. What exactly is the reward? Now, I know fans want to watch things and you want to watch this game, and I get it. Some people are traveling. I get it. But risk, reward when it comes to something tonight, and they're going to make the right decision. They are. But this thing used to be on Saturdays. I know, was it Dan Mullen's first year or was it McElwain? I think it was Mullen's, right? That they moved it to a weeknight. And then, back into the weekend, and they've always had this thing back and forth. And I know, people have been telling me, I've been talking to people throughout the course. It's like, remember when Aaron Andrews and ESPN was here and Tim Tebow? I said, yeah, you were coming off what? A monster year, or at least a good year. Tim Tebow was the Heisman Trophy winner. And you had yourself a situation with the spring game that Florida was extremely popular. The most popular player in college football was back on the team. And it was probably the most dominant program in the sport. But that was 15 years ago. As you get older, I think sometimes people forget that a lot of time has passed, that you have seniors in high school that don't really remember Tim Tebow playing as a Florida Gator. The people that you're trying to recruit right now don't remember, unless they have a very strong memory, because high school seniors were 4 years old when Florida and Tim Tebow were winning national championships. So, when they moved it to Thursday night, I thought, well, okay, I get what they're doing. They want a prime time space on a weeknight in the mid stages of April. Why? Well, I prefer it on the weekend. I'm going to tell you why they do things like this. It's the same reason what Gator football did by moving their spring game to the night is the same reason the Mid-American Conference plays their football games on Tuesdays and Wednesdays in front of dozens of people. Because the money and exposure that they get from TV revenue from that night is greater than the money that they can get and the exposure they can get from you going to the game. And I've always sat here and talked about when people want coaches fired. You need to fire this coach. You need to get on this coach. Schools have never made more money. They have printing presses. These athletic programs have printing presses. That's why you see $200, $300 million facilities. Northwestern's going to build an $800 million new football stadium. So the money has never been greater. Money. TV networks, all the money rolling in. Well, if you're making all this money from television networks, something has to disappear. And what's disappearing? What's disappearing is the importance of fans in the stands. Still, it's a moneymaker. Don't get me wrong. It's a moneymaker. Without a doubt, it's a moneymaker. But the Gators playing their spring game tonight. Think about it, if you play on the weekend, what are you going up against in the weekend? Well, you're going to have 15 plus, 10 to 15 plus Major League Baseball games. You're going to have 3 NBA playoff games. You're going to have several NHL postseason games. So you're fighting for, I don't want to word this. You're fighting for access in an already flattened out landscape. Greg Redigan, ESPN Plus is primetime. Yeah, it's on prime times at night, right? Now, look, you can talk about how, well, I don't have the greatest access in the world to this. That's fine, but I'm telling you why they put it where they put it. They put it where they put it because there's options to get into it, and you don't have. Look at this. Look at it this way. Okay, maybe this is the best example I can give you. Look at a line of 8 different fast food restaurants. Are you going to wait in line an hour for this one, or are you going to go right through the drive-through and now? I'm going to tell you which one was which. Well, depends on the quality and depends on that's just it. But the one that's got the shorter drive-through, your chances are you're going to go through. When you're dealing with all of these networks and all of these games over the course, and look, it would be on one of the ESPN entities, right? Well, ESPN, NBA postseason. You get NHL postseason, Major League Baseball. There's so many more things on the weekend. Because right now you just have the NBA play-in games taking place. I'm just telling you why they put it where they put it. It's all about dollar sign. It is all about dollar sign and money. Well, I don't get to go to the game. It's not about you getting to go to the game. It's not about you. This whole thing, the customer is always right stuff. No, that's why games are played. But why do you think the NFL put games on Thursday night? It's to make money. To make money. So anyway, there you go. It just let's where we are with the spring game heading into tonight. I know now it's even trying to make the talk of the spring game interesting. It's not what it was, and I think we're going to head down a path soon that these things start to go away. I do. I think we're going to head down a path soon where these things start to go away. Because, the benefit of them is what? The benefit of them is what? And you, as consumers, and I always try to tell people this, we dictate our programming to what you consume. We dictate our programming to what you consume. Well, that's not the case. There are a couple things that we run at the station that I would never, ever, ever run, ever. Ever. And the consumption numbers are really low. And I don't want to, I'm doing something that I hate to do. And I'm speaking very, very vaguely. But it doesn't take you very long to figure out there's some sporting events that, we have to take Buccaneers football games off the air. Buccaneers football games do pretty well for the station in terms of consumption. There are things that we have to take off the air all the time for other events. Other events you consume more than others. So again, yeah. Greg, I think Thursday night NFL on Prime Video is a failure. Greg, the NFL made $800 million because of it. How's it a failure? If I told you you're going to make $800 million, you go, failure. It's not a failure. Andy, Seth, are you going to the game? Probably not. I don't know. I don't. If it's raining, no. You get to sit in the press box, though, so. I just don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be miserable. I know that. And here's my rule of thumb, and I know there's probably people cringing in the athletic department right now as I say this. If I'm going to go sit in the rain and it's going to be nasty, I want it to matter. I want it to mean something, right? I want it to count. If I'm going to sit out there and get soaked, or if I'm going to walk over there and it's going to I want it to matter. I should say matter. I want it to count towards something. I remember covering the Jaguars. It'd be preseason games. It'd be pouring. Are you going to go tonight? I'm like, but it's a game. I'm like, the preseason. I don't know. All right. Seth Harp, HarpOnSports, in with you here on this Thursday. Of course, you have any Facebook questions? Shame on me for not reiterating this. Courtesy of Meldon Law, the only official injury law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Of course, I join you every day via the Titan MRI hotline. And there you go. Yeah, there you go. Greg, I don't know what you mean by that's why they got paid. The games during the weeknights are there for one reason only, and they're there because more money and exposure. These things are weighed. That's why the college basketball national championship game tipped off after 9:30, because they know or 9:20, because they know it's going to end around 11:15. Monday Night Football ends around 11:30, right? And it's about how do I fit the most amount of commercials in that 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. block? Because remember, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. to you and I is what? It's 6 to 8 p.m. on the West Coast. So they're trying to leverage all of these eyeballs and people at home and watching. Anytime a game starts like at 9 o'clock, everybody says that's too late. I try to remind people that, close to 25% of the nation's population is going to watch that game at 6 p.m. And people getting home, that's why they do that way. Yeah. So there you go. Hey, Greg, talking about Prime Video, I've said this. I'd love to see, and again, I'm going to go down a different path here. I'd love to see SEC football games on Prime Video on Monday night. I'd love to see a Monday night SEC football component. Love to see it. Everybody's worried about paying players. There you go. If Amazon or Prime or somebody's chucking out $600 million for $800 million for the rights for a one night a week game, and you divvy that $800 million over your 14 member, soon to be 16 member institutions, you just covered all your paying concerns. You put a Monday night SEC game of the week on, in the money that you would make from that alone, you'd solve all of your how do we pay these guys problems, which is coming. All right. Podup with Matthews in the morning is a service of QC Kinetics. If you have joint pain in your knees, shoulders, hip, or back that won't go away, check out QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. Not surgery, drugs, or downtime. Schedule your free consultation at QC Kinetics. Locations in Ocala, now open in Gainesville. 352-400-4550. 352-400-4550. Mary, that is a fan of nowadays. Yeah, where we live. Greg, how about pay-per-view football games? It's funny? We had that for a little while. Now, look, SEC fans really didn't have this. And it was one of those things that I didn't understand until I got probably high school or college. I know it was in college because I thought whatever aired in my market was airing everywhere. So, like when I went to school up in Michigan, moved from Indiana up into Michigan, all of a sudden the games on TV were different. I'm like, wait a second here, how's this possible? Because you have regional access. And then it dawns on you that, oh my gosh, when there's 4 games on the NFL on Sunday, that means you get the one in your market. High school, I never realized. It's one of those things like, how do you get these games? 2 and 2 just never clicked. I know. I was a genius. So, pay-per-view, there was a time like in the early to mid 2000s where you could go on DirecTV and you could buy a game. Greg, there's been a lot of talk of them making the Super Bowl pay-per-view. And ESPN Plus is kind of, you need a subscription to get it. But, major boxing promotions and fights have been pay-per-view for 30, 40 years now. So these pay-per-view football games, is it coming? Kind of what Amazon already is, isn't it, to some extent? But hey, baby, there's always, and I always try to tell people this, there's new and inventive ways to make money. I always bring up the cell phone because, just looking at data, and this is where this podcast is really going to start to get fun and interesting. How you guys consume products and how you obtain your information. One of the big things they're talking about doing now is taking AM and FM radios out of cars, primarily AM radio, primarily electric vehicles, because the more electric vehicles that exist, the AM interference with the battery and the noise is so loud. When you have a combustible engine, this is just, I can't, I know you're just thrilled at this conversation right now. Combustible engines, the noise that's made, it kind of drowns out, but with electrical vehicles that hum, and there's interference with the AM band, and they're talking about like it's more convenient. A lot of electrical vehicles that are going to get made now, I would say Ford is the big one. They're talking about getting rid of them. Not the electric vehicles, the AM component of the radio. Yeah, that's how exciting this spring game has gone down the semantics of how radios work. Podup with Matthews in the morning is a service of Ruse Oregon State Farm Insurance. It's an office of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help you in your life go in the right direction with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ograinsurance.com. Give them a call. 352-240-1779. That's 352-240-1779. So there you go. Spring game. And I know we've talked about spicing this thing up by bringing in other teams and, playing other opponents and making it somewhat interesting. The spring game, let's face it, is the equivalent of what an NFL preseason game is, except 5 months before the season starts. I do think of the spring games in the past, when you've had Mullen, McElwain, when there's a new coach, there's excitement. There was a buzz about Billy Napier. But to me, in year one of a football coach, especially when you're changing an offense, and let's face it, Billy Napier is changing the offense, that when you initially come in, there's excitement, there's buzz. You only can implement about 20% of the stuff, 30% of the stuff that you want to do in year one. In year two, a good chunk of those sophomores are people that you wanted, that you recruited. So it increases by 20 to 25 more percent. So, if Billy Napier could do about 20 to 25% of the things that he wanted to do in year one, he should be able to do about half, a little bit more than half this year of the things as those sophomores as you start to get older, the more comfortable, the more sharp they are with these things. But he's a big, two running back system, big running back. You're going to get to see this offense. It's not going to be where he wants it completely. That's why it takes 4 or 5 years to build a program. But tonight, if they do play this thing, that you're going to get to see, not 100% of the offense. It's going to look like a different football team. It's going to look like a different structure, a different setup. And, depending if it's Miller, whoever ends up being the right guy, you have yourself a true quarterback battle. In the past, you had more of a fan-pushed quarterback battle over the years. And even last year with Anthony Richardson, let's throw in, Kitna. Boy, that'd have been a disaster, right? But you've always had this push between two quarterbacks. And you've had the one that was the heir apparent, that was the guy. Emory Jones was the guy. Anthony Richard came along and, okay, what do we do here? Trying to shove one over the other. You've had quarterback controversies, but quarterback controversies not from the coach's perspective, not from where he couldn't make a tough decision. The quarterback controversies came from fans being mad and ticked off of the product on the field. It wasn't one of these situations where you had two guys that were kind of close and, okay, is this guy going to beat out this guy? And, okay, what's our big quarterback controversy now? Oh my gosh, what are we going to do here? It wasn't like those Spurrier teams that, this guy in, this guy out, we're going to yank this guy, we're going to try this guy. It wasn't like that. It was always, okay, who's our guy? Oh, Felipe Franks is our guy. Oh, God, you've got to find somebody better. Let's try somebody else. Oh, but he was the guy. He wasn't not going to be the starter. This one is a true who's it going to be type of year. A true who's it going to be type of year. And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, and Steve Russell and I were talking about this. It's the last Florida Gator quarterback to start the season opener back-to-back seasons. I can only think of one the last 10 years. Just think about the Florida Gator football program. And it's not because it's like USC or Oklahoma where somebody's going to the NFL, winning the Heisman, going to the NFL, winning the Heisman, going to the NFL. It's not like this. When's the last time Florida had the same starting quarterback back-to-back season openers? The last 10 years, the only one I can think of that's done it's Felipe Franks. He's the only one I can think that's done that's been able to do this for the last decade. I'm sure there's somebody else in there if I really, really start to grind. But and are we going to whoever starts this, whoever wins this starting job, with the way recruiting and how the cycles work, it's a weird time. It is. It is. But you have to look at it this way. And people rag on the transfer portal. But the transfer portal is going to make it easier for Billy Napier to rebuild. And the new Gator Supreme Ultimate, the collective, as they rebrand this thing and rename this thing, here we go. Right? I said there's a lot of money involved in this thing. Okay, I believe it. I believe it. Look where we are. And, I wish I should have spent more time on that today. The new money making entity, or the money collective entity that's going to pay these guys. Think about where this thing started 2-3 years ago when it went to the Supreme Court. Athletes have a right to their own name, image, and likeness. And now you have universities working with former athletes and banding with big boosters to create these $100 million shell companies to churn out money to athletes that haven't even. Think about that. Seriously. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. But that's where it is, isn't it? That's where it is. I just, rather than just to pay the dudes, they're going to sell this money. We're going to pay each one individually, trying to bring these guys. We're going to just, university, you're going to look back in 10 years and you're going to say, what took them so long just to pay these guys? What took them so long just to pay? What's the effort here? Like going to the gym and then texting the whole time. What are you doing? You got to work out here a little bit. Greg says, if Jack Miller is our best quarterback, not feeling too confident going into the season. Yeah, but I get it. I understand. I understand the concern. But it's one of these things that Florida just doesn't have an elite quarterback right now. And going into the year, Kyle Trask ended up being good, but he was an elite guy on paper. Nobody was excited about Kyle Trask. Sometimes these things just have to play themselves out. And how much you're going to see tonight? I don't know how much you're going to see out of him tonight. I really don't. I don't. And I look at the way Florida's offense is going to run. It's much more of a Nick Foles type of quarterback that Billy Napier is looking for. It's much more of a, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of an example because the NFL games change so much. More of a Ryan Tannehill. The Florida Gators, with Billy Napier's approach here, guys, it's much more Tennessee Titans. Now, look, not tight because things have fallen apart on them a little bit, right? They've gotten old. They've lost a bunch of offensive linemen. But think about how good the Titans were 4 or 5 years ago. Titans 3 years ago were in the AFC Championship game and had a lead against the Chiefs in the third quarter. The Chiefs won the first Super Bowl. So that's what Billy Napier's vision and structure of an offense is, more than USC spread them out, let's throw for 400 yards. So it's going to look like I'm telling you, if they do play this, it's going to look like a different team tonight. It just is. Pot up with Matthews in the morning. Service up. Comfort temp. I don't know if you're going to need the heater today or the AC today. It's kind of just one of those days, right? Comfort is their business. Peace of mind is the promise. Summer on the way. When's the last time your AC was tuned up? Get it done now. Don't wait for it to get hot. Summer heat wave is going to kick in. It's going to be in the 90s next week. So give Comfort Temp a call, 352-376-2366. That's 352-276-2366. Andy writes, he says, Seth, Jeff Driscoll started game one back-to-back in 2013 and 2014. Yeah, it's been about a decade. I think Felipe Franks did too, didn't he? Didn't Felipe Franks start the opener back-to-back years? Yeah, Greg Emery Jones. Emery didn't start the season opener back-to-back because Kyle was 2020. Emery was 21. Anthony Richardson. Think about this. I'll leave you with this. I just thought of something. Felipe Franks, 19. 20, Trask. Right? Yeah. 21, Emery. 22, Anthony Richardson. 23, Jack Miller. So the Florida Gators have had 5 different starting quarterbacks the last 5 years. Are going to have 5 different starting quarterbacks the last 5 years. Opening weekend. Any way you look at it. There you go. Again, Podup with Matthews in the morning. What's spring game heavy today? And yeah, what position battles? What about this? What about this? What about this? Hey, guys, it's not going to be that type of game. It's just not. It never is. It never is. So we'll see as time goes on. Make sure you keep it locked in, of course. Steve Russell, Sports